Yo, I'm back. What up, dudes? All right, so I have two videos of Shane Biebs. These are both from 2020. I did a breakdown on him, I want to say last year? I don't remember. But we are going to be talking about hand path. Done a lot of stuff on that of recent, including a new ebook that you can pick up on my website, therobbyrowshow.com. Hit the menu button, and you'll see an option for ebooks, and you'll go there, and you'll see a little ebook that's brand new, and it's called Throwing Mechanics ebook. That's basically me giving you everything that I have on optimizing hand path and arm action. So if you've been following me for a while, if you've been checking out all my stuff on YouTube and Instagram or whatever, or TikTok, whatever it is, you know that I am extremely passionate when it comes to the arm action, right? But things that I've learned kind of over the years working with guys and personal development is that you can't have an efficient arm action unless you have a good hand path, right? And you can't have a good hand path if you don't have a good arm action. So basically, I think when it comes down to it, the most important piece to all of this is what I call, and Ron Wolfworth with Texas Baseball Ranch would call connection, right? Like that is the biggest piece to efficient throwing mechanics. Now, it's a very broad term, I get it. But if we don't have connection with our hand path arm action, then we can't leverage our arm with our body, right? So for me, I've said this before, I'll say it a million more times, the goal of the delivery shouldn't just necessarily be velocity. It should be effortless velocity. How can I throw hard with as less as effort as possible? Now, we can't do that unless our body is working with our arm. I've done a ton of breakdowns on things titled, arm working independently from the body, and that's kind of in the realm of hand disconnection and arm disconnection and so on and so forth. I know I'm talking a lot without showing anything, so we're just going to break right into it. But there was a video that I'd encourage you to look at. It was something that MLB Network did. Al Leiter specifically did it on Robbie Ray's new arm action. And it's on my YouTube. I would encourage you to check that out because Shane Bieber was actually included within that little breakdown. So what we have with Shane Bieber, there's a lot of things that I personally love about Bieber, but just to give you kind of a recap of what Shane Bieber does really well is he is extremely consistent and extremely efficient, right? If you watch him pitch, you'll know that he's always around the strike zone. He's always putting all of his different offerings, his pitches in the strike zone, and you can't do that unless you're repeatable, and more specifically repeatable in this slot, right? So there's so much that comes down to it as far as, all right, how can we get consistent in this slot on as much as possible? Now, this is where I would say that hand path comes into this, right? So we essentially simplify the hand path and we work the arm with the body. So just a quick recap, something that I think Shane Bieber does really well. Now, I will say that the one on the right, I believe, is a changeup, and the one on the left is a fastball. So they could be a little bit different in terms of the tempo of the hand path. But something that I really like from this point of view, from the back, is when he separates his hands, his front hip is in the way of his hand, right? So he has this this little coil here, kind of just blocking the view of the hitter, right? Now, this isn't a huge thing that anyone must do, but I do believe, from talking to a lot of guys, talking to a lot of hitters over the course of my career, is for some reason it's a subconscious thing that when a hitter sees the ball at hand separation, sees the white of the ball at hand separation, there's something about it that gives a little bit more comfort. Now, Bieber does a really good job of of blocking that with his hand separation. Now, this is where I think it's fantastic, because what you're going to see is front side direction, okay? That's what we see here. Now, we're also going to see that he has this kind of counter rotation. Let's go to this right here. with his trunk there. But he's also, again, not to spend too much time on the lower body mechanics, but his direction is straight to, home plate. Now, this is where I'm biased just because of what this kind of hand path has done for me, but equal opposite, right? I know I can't draw on that other side, but just keeping the hand very similar to what the glove hand is, I think that's going to, from a biomechanics standpoint, allow us to repeat on a consistent basis, and keeping flexion in the throwing arm, right? And when I say flexion, just a little bit bent. Let me see if at any point he gets a little bit greater than 90 degrees. So as you see, like, there's no point in which that he's extending this hand. Again, this isn't a right or wrong thing. There's a lot of people that have this quote unquote long arm, even though I don't like to really call it long arm and short arm. But you can just see that there's no point in which the arm / hand is like going backwards. It's always in this pocket. PFA, they do a great job over there. I love what he says in terms of pocket path, like just pocket whip and stick, I think is his thing. I love them, like, fantastic. So be sure to go check them out on Instagram. But just the consistency of this very simplistic move, right? You separate as you kind of drop those hips, right? So you see the hands separate as the hips are going to be dropped. So boom. So we have that move. Now, as we drop these hips, that's when we see that we're going to essentially separate right into this horizontal shoulder abduction, or aka scap retraction. And now what we see that I absolutely love is that we still have this front side direction, establishing that direction, long extended front side. And then as he now comes up, his trunk's going to come to that glove side. So really, really good picture here on the right of that trunk coming into that glove, right? It's fantastic. So what I also believe that helps Bieber here with this kind of maintaining of flexion in the arm is that he now, boom, when he lands, he has connection, right? So he's relatively inside 90 a little bit, but his hand is not working, his arm is not working independently from his body. Every movement that his body is doing, his arm is right there along for the ride, right? Both arms, in fact, right? So now he's leveraging his arm as he comes down into that front foot strike. He's leveraging his arm, meaning that, okay, so let's break this down, because I think there's a lot of people that have questions with this. Leveraging the arm, meaning like the arm is working in relation to the body, which also means that you'll see here on the left, a really good picture. Okay, let's just watch this. Now, pelvis closed, front foot closed, right? So this is the whole rotation into front foot strike. And then now, boom, he's going to land. Boom, he's going to land, right? So now we see in this picture, right at landing, that his hips go, right? So his hips are going essentially before landing. His trunk hadn't gone, right? So this is the whole hip-shoulder separation thing. His hand and his arm action are along for the ride, meaning now as he anchors down into front foot strike, that his hip rotation is going to be completed, which is then going to bring his trunk, right, into the trunk rotation, which then his arm is going to be a byproduct of maximizing that trunk rotation, right? So all of those things are going to happen. Try to break it down frame by frame. So now hip rotation is going to be completed. The hip rotation is going to bring the trunk into rotation, and the trunk rotation is going to now bring the arm into its slot. So you have a lot of moving parts and the ability to keep consistency in that slot with the very simplistic hand path, right? We didn't see a lot of moving parts with the hand path, separated as we dropped into our hip rotation, and then we went right into horizontal shoulder abduction. I don't know why I say that. I'll just say the retraction, and then his hand was connected with his body the whole entire time. You can just see that it's connected, right? And in terms of, like, everyone asks, like, well, what is connection? You can just see, just based off this visual, that his hand at no point is getting so far away from his body that he has to work harder to then leverage his arm with his body, right? Arm working with his body, staying connection, a little bit of dip below the hip line, and then come straight up into this throw. Everyone's like, well, he's short arming it. Short arming is there's no point in which there's even a conversation to be had with short arm. Short arm is when you come into ball release and you cut the ball off because you're not on time. That's short arm, right? So now you see the full extension. That's not short arm. Do you see any point in which he's at ball release with a short arm, right? So that's just like a byproduct for me of like, okay, front side extension. Okay, now we go into our rotation, arm comes through. Now the throwing arm matches front side extension into extension, and then fantastic arm deceleration. So yeah, Shane Bieber doing it, obviously. Consistency with all of his pitches in the strike zone, ability to throw any pitch at any count. You can't have that without a repeatable arm action. Can't have a repeatable arm action unless you are connected with your hand path. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to have a simplistic hand path like Bieber does here, but for majority of the guys that I would say, especially youth guys that struggle with inconsistencies, is to simplify your hand path, simplify the arm action, get consistent with everything, and allow your body to work, right? Allow your arm to work with your body. Check out that ebook. $25 ebook that'll basically give you everything in terms of what I've used in the past and still using with guys, even myself, to better optimize this whole dynamic that we're talking about. All right, guys. Much love. As always, subscribe to all my stuff. Follow me on all my stuff. If you don't, thumb more. Love you guys. God bless.